Live from JDOG World Headquarters in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, this is JDOG Veteran Ventures, a podcast for veterans who have or want to start their own business. With your hosts, Jerry Flanagan and Tracy Flanagan, co-founders of JDOG Brands.
Hi, my name is Jerry Flanagan. I'm here with my wife, Tracy Flanagan. We are the co-founders of JDOG Franchise Systems, and we're here to have a conversation on our podcast, JDOG Veteran Ventures, to hopefully help veteran entrepreneurs see if they have what it takes to be an entrepreneur. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through right now, talk about what it takes to be a veteran entrepreneur, and we have a checklist of things that I wrote down that I think are going to be relevant. So Tracy, I'm going to go read this list down. I'm going to have you read a statement about JDOG, and you're going to tell the camera what you who you are and what you do, and I'll say the same thing, and then we'll get right into it. So over the next several weeks, we're going to talk about our JDOG company, the history. What is an entrepreneur? Are you one? Business plan versus business idea. Problem solving versus passion solving. Try it before you buy it, or are you all in? Risk versus reward. Sound advice versus naysayers. Networking, the value of networking. Guerrilla marketing. Do you know your numbers? How long before you pull the trigger on a bad business? How do you deal with failure? Do you build a team to live your dream? What's the veteran advantage that we already have out there as a veteran? What are good margins and what are bad margins? How do you solve a problem in business? Does your business have an unlimited demand? Recession-proof versus hot, that week items, I call it. When to settle for a job, and is it ever too late to start a business? So those are the subjects we're gonna cover. You and I are. We're gonna talk about our experience with JDOG, some of our failures and our successes. So why don't you start off by telling everyone what your background is and bring us up to the time we started JDOG.
Okay. My background is I graduated with an AS degree as a legal secretary, and I spent 10 years in the legal field, 10 years in the medical field. So I like to say that I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. I even started my own sewing business. So I kind of had that entrepreneur spirit, kind of got started with that and kind of went down that road. And Jerry and I met, and he had a retail business, and it just kind of made sense to go into that retail space with you and continue to build that concept that we started with in 2006, our retail business. I'm sure you can talk more about that.
Yeah, I'll take it from there. So I'm an Army veteran, and after the Army, I lasted about 5 months in college. That did not work out. I tried to apply my GI Bill, but I couldn't afford it back then. It was a Montgomery GI Bill. Went out into the workforce, tried to use my 31-kilo wire dog job as my basis for employment, and that didn't work, so I couldn't transition my employment from the military, which a lot of veterans have that problem today. So I did the retail, bouncing, dishwashing, gas station, had to pay the bills. Landed a job in a retail company, worked my way through the ranks, discovered that I should be an entrepreneur. I was making another person a lot of money, and I felt that one way, really the only way to make a strong living is to be in business for yourself. Mm-hmm. So got a taste of that entrepreneur spirit. In 1999, started my own business. Failed because I ran out of money, which we're going to talk about later in future episodes. Rebounded, got my job back. Then we, as you know, started again. Right. We were very successful when we did what we did in retail, and then the economy crashed. And when the economy crashed, again, we were not prepared financially to take that hit. And in 2010, we both filed bankruptcy with our middle school children, and we have a subject on that we're going to talk about in a future podcast. We started JDOG in 2011. After some careful research online, and realized that the public needed junk removal services, and also the public wanted to support veteran-owned businesses. So basically, I want you, Tracy, to read our mission statement of what we do at JDOG, and then let's take on our first subject, and let's get this podcast started.
Okay. JDOG is the U.S. military brand dedicated to providing business ownership opportunities to veterans and veteran family members via franchising. The company, founded with the goal of increasing veteran employment and helping reduce the veteran unemployment rate to under 1%, is seeking franchise partners and customers to help fulfill their duty of supporting Americans, veterans, and communities across the nation. At JDOG, military values guide all operations, respect, integrity, and trust. The franchise opportunity offers a low barrier to entry, high profit margins, and a simple-to-operate model with significant support from a team of veterans and experienced business executives.
Okay, great. So that's what JDOG is really all about. But what we're here for is we want to talk about veteran entrepreneurship. And I wrote down some notes of what I think a veteran entrepreneur should be. And then I'm going to have you just speak off the top of your head. So I cheated.
Okay.
I got a chance to write down the notes. So to me, in my mind, description of an entrepreneur, number one, do you take action? Let's talk about that. Do you take action in everything you do in your life, right? An entrepreneur is someone who, and I'm going to read the list, but step one, they need to make a decision and kind of go for it, run through the wall, so to speak.
I would agree with that.
Okay, so give me an example of an entrepreneur that's out there that you can think of that's done that.
Steve Jobs. That's the first one that comes to mind.
Okay, Steve Jobs, that's a good one. Scared. Entrepreneurs are scared. Being scared in starting a business is, I think, a mandatory position to be in because that fuels you.
It does.
And if you go back to you and I filing bankruptcy, starting a job because I couldn't get a job, starting a business because I couldn't get a job, I think that was a real reason why we were so successful. Simply because we woke up every single day realizing that we weren't going to get a paycheck unless we put in, those 15, 20 hours.
Right. It really fuels you. I remember being scared to death, thinking that I just have to do whatever I can to help promote the business and move it forward right alongside of you.
Why don't you go a little deeper? So talk about the nights of crying and the nights of just laying on the couch, not knowing where the next paycheck's going to be. I mean, open yourself up if you'd like to.
Well, just a lot of prayer on my knees and being very scared. Yeah, crying, tears. But that sort of thing just fueled me into action. And I believed in your entrepreneurial spirit, and your work ethic and values. You were going to do everything. You were going to run through walls. And you did, and I trusted you, and I believed in that.
So let's talk. Yeah, let's talk through that. So as being the husband and the father that was no longer providing money because of what just happened, a second failed business for me,
correct,
and not being able to get a job to pay the bills, I think it was even further than scared. I mean, it was more like being petrified. So if I wasn't racing out of the house and getting out there, my opportunities were going to be limited. And I think
true.
As an entrepreneur, if you want to get into this scary space and leave your cushy job or you're leaving the military where it's very secure, I think you need to be prepared to face some very scary scenarios because every day is not going to be a good day. Mm-hmm. I love the movie Groundhog Day. He wakes up every day and he makes a right and misses the pothole that day, or he says the right thing to the girl, or he's always constantly moving and shifting, and just to better himself, and finally, he gets the prize. And I think that entrepreneurship is the exact same way. You are going to step in that pothole. You are not going to feel good. Bad things are going to happen, and I don't think people talk about it enough. I think a lot of advice that's out there, it's all feel good. Mm-hmm. They don't talk about failure and problems. Where I think that's the essence of entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. So that was a big point that I want to make to people out there, veterans that are considering going out on their own and want to know what it takes. Well, step one, it takes being able to accept, that feeling of being scared and being sick. Mm-hmm. let's get that out of the way. Let's go to another thing. Another thing that I thought was you need to be creative and you need to be a problem solver. To me, that's my opinion. Being creative. Always being willing to see what other people are doing and put your flair on it. You don't need to reinvent the wheel on everything. There are people out there that are doing good things. You can just take those things and actually do it better. Improve upon it. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think one of the things of being an entrepreneur is having an idea, being the person with the idea, and you have to be able to look at the big picture too. I think very important. If you have a support system, say a spouse that's going into business with you. Hopefully they can be the person to handle the details. And that's kind of what happened in our situation, whereas it allowed you to have vision, creativity, and look at the big picture and be able to forge and develop the business.
Do you think every veteran entrepreneur needs to have a whiteboard?
Yes, that's a must.
Kind of like we do at our office?
Yes. A huge wall dedicated.
Describe our office and our whiteboard and what goes on that whiteboard. That's a good
Everything
point.
goes on that whiteboard. But what I love most about our office is that a lot of the stuff in it is junk removal stuff that we've acquired along the way from our business when we've had the first JDOG, but also from franchisees out in the area who helped us furnish our office. And just, it's very military-esque. You really feel like you're, right back home.
So they act as reminders, basically, of where we started. But
right.
when you go back
and it acts as a reminder of our mission and what we're all about.
But go back to the whiteboard, because I want the people listening to think about putting their ideas on a board. Good, bad thoughts.
Right.
Paper's okay, but when you write it up on a whiteboard and you're able to really observe what's going on in your brain.
Right.
Entrepreneurs typically to think, because I'm thinking about myself, very abstract, and ideas come in because I smell something. I mean, it's very weird, right?
Right.
I have no focus. I can't read very well. I just constantly do and write things on the whiteboard. Mm-hmm. So I just think that us talking to veteran entrepreneurs out there is get into that whiteboard habit,
right.
where if you have an idea, you throw it down. I know the voice recording things, they say to do that, but boy, I'd rather see it on a whiteboard.
Yeah, I mean, I think whiteboards can be very effective, definitely, and it's really great. It's sort of like word vomit on the whiteboard. All your thoughts, you just throw them out there, and then you can start connecting the dots a lot easier, I think.
Let me give an example of a whiteboard that didn't backfire, but just didn't work out so well. So I guess a couple of years ago, I went on the whiteboard right at the end of the year, and I gave everyone, this whole thought of New Year resolution.
I remember
Clean your desk.
I remember this.
Delete all your stuff off your computer, and you want fresh ideas. And I wrote on the whiteboard that we were going to meet 4 times a day for 5 minutes of spontaneous, what are you working on, what's on your mind? Well, I had that all written out on the whiteboard, and it literally lasted one day because it was a terrible idea.
Right.
People were on the phone. I was interrupting everybody. We ran out of ideas to share.
Right.
It really backfired. And I actually read that in one of those
backfired.
entrepreneur magazines, and I thought, oh, wow, Microsoft does this. We should do it. So sometimes the whiteboard tells you what not to do. So it's a very good sounding board, I should say. Okay, so let's jump into the next thing that's on my mind. If you're an entrepreneur, I think a lot of it has to be about the money. I mean, you need to want to make money, or you should not be in the entrepreneurship business. That's what drives you, I think. And then when you make your money, you can take that money and you can do whatever you want. You can build schools, you can donate it, you can do whatever you want. But if you're going to get in the entrepreneur space, you need to be aggressive. And I'm not saying you need to rip people off, but at the end of the day, you need to look at your bottom line, you need to look at your cash flow, or you're going to be out of business.
Right. And
unfortunately, we've dealt with veteran entrepreneurs that have come in through the JDOG system that have been more charitable as opposed to being more business savvy.
Correct.
And I want to make sure that our listeners are, identify who they are in their personality. Are they charitable, which is okay, you can have some. but are you a shark? Are you going to go out there and really build a business? And I think we should speak on that. If you got any thoughts on some of the franchisees that have come along that we knew they probably should be in a different role as opposed to trying to be an aggressive business person because they're doing jobs for free. They're taking their proceeds and they're donating before they're paying their bills. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, at the end of the day, you really need to be able to support your family and support your business. It's great to be charitable. It's great to have that type of, a little bit of that mindset. If you can give your customers a discount, if they're a veteran or however you want to, there's different ways to be charitable, but still make sure that you're making money and you're meeting your bottom line. And Jerry, we have always said, this has been kind of our motto as our JDOGs start out: aim small, miss small. Okay, watch your operating capital. Be careful that you're not making huge monetary decisions where it's going to backfire, and then you have a problem at the end of the day. So you really have to, I think, monitor that as you go along, and make sure that you're making money to meet your bills, put food on your table, and then worry about the charities. And I think it's important that your business is successful.
And we'll get into, each of these subjects we're talking about, we're going to get into a little more detail in future podcasts about cash flow and chart of accounts and some of those things. We're going to get a little more specific. So I got maybe one more thing that we can kind of go over. And I want to hear your thoughts on this. So waffling. I think that waffling is a very important word because everyone calls me a waffler.
I love it.
The ability to change your mind at any time. No matter how much you believe in something, you need to be able to shift and make a left instead of a right if you see that path is not correct. And we do this on a daily basis.
We do.
Literally on a daily basis. And it's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of smartness.
It is.
Being able to, change staff if you need to at any time, no matter, what personality they have. You need to be able to make those decisions for the best interest of the company. You need to be able to make decisions that you may have believed in on day one, but day two, it doesn't sound like a good idea. You need to change that decision.
You need to be open-minded and flexible, which to me is a sign of a very successful entrepreneur, is being able to shift and flex.
Constantly
tweaking. Because especially in the beginning, when you're building a business, if your feet are set in stone and you're not going to shift and make those adjustments, it could really hurt the business.
Yeah, and there's some
really
CEOs out there.
Back.
There's CEOs out there that make a decision and we're going to run with this for the next 3 years, no matter what, because it was their idea. And you see it.
Can't do that.
It doesn't work really well from that perspective. Yeah. So the advice to veterans out there that are listening, you need flexibility. And if you're not a flexible leader, you're going to run into some problems. You're definitely going to run into some problems. So the way I'd like to close it out, that's all the subjects we're going to have for our first podcast episode, which this was. We have been brought here, sponsored by GI Jobs. Victory Media. This is going to be on their website, and we're going to promote those guys. They're fantastic. They're always looking for opportunities to put veterans into business or veterans into jobs. Gregory FCA, who's allowing us to be here in their studio and recording us. And also JDOG, which is JDOG Brands. We are a junk removal service company. We're hauling junk in 31 states, 200 locations, and we're getting ready to roll out our JDOG carpet cleaning business next week, actually. So we're going to be looking for veteran entrepreneurs who necessarily don't want to open their own business, but they want to join a team like JDOG and be an entrepreneur, but under a franchise system. So I think from our perspective, this is the end of our first episode, and thank you for joining us.
Curious about Jerry Flanagan and his company, JDOG Brands? Visit jdogbrands.com for more information.